Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. The CRTC is working to implement an internet subsidy in the north. Customers can expect a discount in the foreseeable future, but just how much prices will drop remains uncertain, along with answers to other key questions. Jocelyn Chappelle explains.
How much should Northerners save on their internet costs? That's one of the questions CRTC asked earlier this year. It's a divisive one among internet service providers. The NWT government supports an overall $55 a month subsidy, or a $45 subsidy for those that have options aside from satellite, and $75 for communities that are satellite dependent. TELUS proposed a $10 monthly subsidy. Bell Canada and Northwestel support Northerners saving $25 or less a month, with an exception. They don't believe consumers that use Starlink should receive the subsidy. Mark Colombe lives just outside Yellowknife on the Ingram Trail. He says he has little to no choice but to use Starlink.
You're caught between a rock and a hard place. For me, I would strongly support some form of subsidy for Canadians who can show they have no alternative.
Ron Noling is a resident in Baker Lake, Nunavut. He says Starlink is the best option they have, but that for many, it's not feasible. Noling says the subsidy could help a lot of people.
The Canadian government wants to build communities in the north that have capacity, that are self-sufficient, that are vibrant, cultural living places. Then Northerners have to have access to reasonably priced internet.
Noling thinks the subsidy is a good idea, but more needs to be done. He'd like to see free public internet spaces in the north. On the other side, internet companies disagree. TELUS proposed that community centers and schools not be included in the subsidy. They say it would be a redistribution scheme because institutions already receive funding through taxes. Bell Canada and Northwestel also agreed with that stance. The CRTC says they are working towards a decision. They can't say when it will be made, but the decision will include the subsidy amount, timeline, and details about who is eligible. Jocelyn Chappelle, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A mining company in Nunavut is hoping to extend the lives of 2 mines in the territory and open up a new one. Those updates were part of the Nunavut Mining Symposium, a major event in the territory. The CBC's Mahnur Mubarak has more.
Agnico Eagle Mines is working towards opening its Hope Bay mine and aiming to start gold production in 2030. Chris Adams is the vice president for Nunavut.
Nunavut is an important platform for the company, and Hope Bay is part of our future success.
That mine is to produce between 380 to 400,000 ounces of gold per year. Agnico Eagle is also hoping to possibly extend the life of its other 2 mines in Nunavut, Meadowbank, set to close in 2028, and Meladine, which is set to close in 2032. Although Adams didn't give the exact dates of how long those extensions could be. Another gold mining company, B2 Gold, says it's opening a new gold mine in Nunavut this year. Ben Scott is an operation manager.
Our gold production is expected to produce about 300,000 ounces over a 5-year average.
A representative from Baffinland Iron Mines Corporation reiterated that the company's focus remains the Steensby Railway project. That mining company is trying to build a railway connecting its mine to a port in Steensby Inlet. Mahnur Mubarak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Nunavut's health minister says his department is working on a response to the recommendations from a coroner's inquest in Kimmirut. The inquest was looking into the death of Kimmirut resident George Arluktu. Arluktu died by suicide on February 9th of 2019. John Main says he hasn't formally received the recommendations, but the department knows what they are and it's taking them seriously.
This is not a matter that we take lightly. Like it's extremely serious circumstances that led to this inquest, and it's, these recommendations from the jury, they put a lot of work into this inquest, and we take them very seriously.
One of the recommendations calls for the government of Nunavut to declare a suicide crisis in the territory. Main says his department is still deciding how to respond to that recommendation. The National is broadcasting live from the Northwest Territories tonight. Host Adrienne Arsenault is in Yellowknife to bring you the CBC's nightly national newscast, and she joined me earlier to tell me why. Adrienne, thank you so much. Welcome to the North.
Hey, thanks very much. It's fantastic to be here. I mean, look where you live. It's extraordinary.
It's a gorgeous view you've got behind you. And with that behind you, tell us why you decided and the team decided to bring the show to the Northwest Territories.
I think because elections are about the voters, and yet it's the politicians and the pundits and the pollsters who get the bulk of attention and airtime. And so we made a conscious decision that, yes, they're important. They're absolutely critical, but let's make sure that they don't push out the views of the voters in this. So we've been traveling the country a bit, going to places that are at the center of the big issues, like St. John, New Brunswick, right? It's the most terror-vulnerable city in all of Canada. For example, went to Brampton, Medicine Hat, and here, because there's been so much conversation about Arctic security and Arctic sovereignty, but you cannot have that conversation, obviously, without the people who live in the North. So the plan is to have 2 full days of coverage with voices from the communities at the pointy end of this conversation, and make sure their voices are heard.
Yeah, I mean, can you give us a preview of some of those voices? What are some of the things that you've heard from Northerners?
For sure. So what we've done is we've sort of split up the coverage. Juanita Taylor, who's a fantastic journalist, she and Kate Kyle have been going to some of the northern communities like Rankin Inlet, for example, to talk about how, all this conversation about Arctic sovereignty may mean opportunity for investment in infrastructure that's lacking. So, she spent a lot of time with families who are crammed into insufficient housing and talked about the prospect of renewed attention finally bringing what it is they need. We looked at the risks, so we went to Tuk, we went to Inuvik, looked at sort of the landscape of unfulfilled promises, the antiquated technology and conversations about what the risk really is in terms of the security threat and what the plans are to mitigate it and how people feel about it. I mean, we were at the Inuvik Jamboree, and lots of the elders there were talking about, they want to trust, but they feel like they've been promised so much in the past and it hasn't materialized. I mean, simple things like there isn't a dentist in Inuvik. How is that possible that people have to fly to Yellowknife to go to a dentist? It's preposterous. Can they not get some security in that sense? Because if you don't have a healthy, thriving population, what kind of Arctic sovereignty can there possibly be? So we talked about really practical measures like that and some big things and some questions about, how afraid are people really? When you ask some people about Arctic sovereignty, they're more afraid of the, of the warming climate. That's more of a threat to their livelihood than the prospect of of an intercontinental ballistic missile coming over the pole from Russia.
For sure, some really, really important conversations there. I will say, though, really quickly, for a bit of levity, you mentioned going to the Jamboree in Inuvik, the Muskrat Jamboree. Tell me about some of the non-election-related fun stuff you got to do while you're here.
It's amazing. I mean, we did get stuck in a snowbank in Tuk, and it was fascinating to see how within 5 minutes, pretty much everybody in the community knew we were there, like the city folks have arrived. Can't drive. We also, at the Jamboree, we watched a musical chairs game like I've never seen before. So it was like all the women were doing musical chairs at first, and so the music would go on, and then they'd walk around, and then the host would say, "Go get a man," and so they'd run and grab a man, and the laughing was crazy. The elders and the aunties were all roaring with laughter, and it was just really fun watching it, and it's been a sense of the strong community. And we, as a crew, we're basically all 8 years old. So we were super excited to get to Yellowknife and run outside when it got dark and look at the northern lights and just have that experience, which is not something we get the privilege of having all the time. So the whole thing's, it's been a thrill, and it's been fantastic to talk with people here. And we hope they feel good about the work we're doing with them.
Well, I can't wait to see the pieces on the show tonight. I'm grateful that you got to have some fun along with tackling those important topics. And again, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on Northbeat tonight, Adrian.
Thank you. Take care. Eh?
And you can watch Adrian Arsenault on The National tonight in Yellowknife. Well, we are exactly 2 weeks away from the federal election, so let's check in now with the major party leaders. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says if he becomes prime minister, he plans to use the notwithstanding clause in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to carry out part of his tough-on-crime policies.
I am announcing today a Conservative government will reintroduce and pass the law that empowered judges to impose consecutive sentences for killers convicted of multiple murders. The worst mass murderers should never be allowed back on our streets. For them, a life sentence should mean what it says, a life sentence. They should only come out in a box.
Poilievre says he respects Supreme Court decisions, but also respects Canadians' charter rights guaranteeing life, liberty, and the security of person. He wants to use the override clause to get around a 2022 Supreme Court ruling that said imposing consecutive life sentences violates an offender's charter rights.
Today, I'm announcing our plan to build the tools needed to ensure Canada's sovereignty, to support a new approach to made-in-Canada defence procurement, while helping our industries and businesses reach new markets around the world.
Liberal leader Mark Carney is promising to make significant new investments in the Canadian military and create a new defence procurement agency to streamline equipment purchases and buy Canadian whenever possible. It's all meant to reduce reliance on the United States. Carney also promised to build up domestic research on advanced military technologies, and he talked about doing more to secure Canada's coastlines, including the Arctic, by purchasing new submarines, icebreakers, and drones.
In addition, we have a plan around recruitment. There are a lot of internationally trained nurses that are in our country. We need to streamline the path for them to be recognized for their work and to be able to get qualified.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is pledging to hire 35,000 new nurses between now and 2030 as part of his plan to tackle the nursing shortage. Singh made the promise while on the campaign trail in Toronto. He's pledging a requirement for provinces to meet nurse-to-patient ratios, guarantee fair wages for nurses, and improve their working conditions. He also promised to offer a $5,000 tax credit to nurses and personal support workers, and to end the use of private nursing agencies in favor of reinvesting in public healthcare teams. Tomorrow, CBC Yukon will host a candidates forum, and ahead of that, they've put together a short video introducing the people who want to win your vote in the upcoming federal election. Check it out.
I'm staying alive.
I can't sing and I can't dance, and I spare everybody the pain of watching that. I'm Ryan Leaf, the Conservative candidate for the Yukon.
Catherine McCallum, and I'm running with the federal NDP.
Hi, I'm Brendan Hanley, and I'm the Yukon candidate for the Liberal Party.
Gabrielle Dupont, Green Party candidate for the Yukon.
U.S. tariff threats, housing, affordability, mental health, and climate.
Housing, clean energy, and good democracy.
Healthcare, particularly mental health care, and access to healthcare, and education, access to education, and housing.
Affordability, from housing to food security, and gun and crime control, with a particular focus on supporting our firearms community.
Don't forget the sunscreen.
Don't be afraid to take risks.
Travel around the world and go off the beaten track.
Bullies are bad.
Housing affordability, the dream of owning a home.
Climate change.
Housing is such a problem. I have kids who are 19 and 21, and it's an issue.
They care about the climate. They care about Canadian unity. They care about affordability and being able to afford whether they can afford a house.
Oh, that would be Sinead O'Connor.
I would have dinner with my grandfather who died a month before I was born, who had an amazing life.
Both of my uncles who passed away.
I would love to have dinner with Celine Dion.
Yukon, those are your candidates for the federal election. They will join Dave White and Virginie Anne tomorrow for a forum. Now that starts at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time on CBC Radio 1 in the Yukon. It will also be live streamed on our website and our YouTube channel.
The claims period for 2 classes in the First Nations Child and Family Services and Jordan's Principal Settlement is now open.
First Nations children who were removed from their homes on reserve between April 1st, 1991 and March 31st, 2022, and their caregiving parents and caregiving grandparents can now submit a claim for compensation.
There are free supports to help you fill out your form.
And mental health and wellness supports if you need them.
Learn more and submit your claim at fnchildclaims.ca.
The federal election is on Monday, April 28th. You can vote early. Advance polls will be open April 18th to 21st. If you prefer, you can vote at any Elections Canada office until Tuesday, April 22nd, 6 p.m., or you can apply to vote by mail. Check your voter information card or visit elections.ca for all the ways you can vote. It's our vote.
For the official information you need to vote, visit elections.ca or call 1-800-463-6868.
You're not down south anymore, Toto? Tell me everything.
Deal.
Is that Canada?
Yeah. I love it.
Incredible.
Imagine how good the TV's gonna look now.
Isn't it ironic, don't you think?
Is it?
Is it? See you there.
Every week, the issues that matter to Canadians, connecting politics to people.
Canada is not for sale.
This will be America's new golden age.
Sundays, join me for Rosemary Barton Live.
The Nunavut Department of Health has confirmed that a dog in Nunavut has tested positive for rabies. The dog was euthanized after attacking other dogs in the community. Symptoms in animals include strange or aggressive behavior, frothing at the mouth, and choking. Any animals exhibiting these signs should be avoided and reported to the Regional Environmental Health Office. Anyone in Nunavut who has been bitten or scratched by a dog or a fox should go to the local health center. New data from Food Banks Canada shows reliance on food banks is soaring in this country. Last month alone, 2 million Canadians turned to the food bank for help. And as George Moratis reports, that demand is also rising in the Yukon.
I'm Judy Precosti, and I work here on Thursday mornings since 2014 on the front desk, greeting people and taking their shopping orders and sending them on and trying to find them the good things that are left for them. So we ask how old the person's going to be in case it's a little kid and what kind of cake they want, chocolate or, well, there's no chocolate today. Here's a chocolate, okay. We always give everybody a cake mix for their birthday. And we try to give them an icing and some candles.
How does that make people feel when they come in and they're still...
They love it. They're so glad that their kid will have a birthday party this year.
New data from Food Banks Canada shows that 1/4 of Canadians are living with food insecurity. Petcozy knows all too well the need many Canadians face right now.
I haven't had to get food here, but I have been homeless lately. Well, I have a son with a disability, and he lives in Victoria, and normally he does really well, but he's been unemployed for 14 months. So I've been supplementing his income for groceries and for the rest of his rent, which social assistance doesn't cover. And it's much more important that he have safe housing, secure housing, than me. I have millions of friends up here that I can live with.
I think food security has taken a back burner in this election, and it's a really important topic that we need to bring to the forefront. So a lot of our clients have said just the ratcheting prices in the grocery store are too much. As an example, Since 2019, food costs in the Yukon have gone up 78 to 100%, depending on the items in this grocery store. That's hundreds of dollars a week extra that people are paying in the grocery store. Over 30% of food banks across the country had to say no to folks last year when they came in. They ran out of food before they could meet demand. Thankfully, here in the Yukon, I live in the most generous community in Canada, and we've managed to be in a position where we haven't had to say no to people yet. But it's an unsustainable bell curve that we're working up towards.
We did not used to store food all the way up to the rafters. We did not used to have the warehouse manager getting his head clipped by a ceiling fan while he's storing boxes on top of the freezer. We have become a big operation.
It's getting busier, yeah, and some days you just ran off your feet. So it's an unfortunate fact that that's anecdotal. Just what I've seen in the last little while. And as I said, also the diversity of people coming in. A lot of people are working and they're just trying to make it through. So it's good to help out in that, but I really wish that I didn't have to.
The Yukon Food Bank says until root causes of food insecurity are addressed, demand on food banks will continue to grow.
Single men love to eat cereal.
George Moratis, CBC News, Whitehorse.
New research could upend scientists' understanding of mammoths in North America. The research is based on a mammoth tooth found near Old Crow in the Yukon in 2018. It's estimated to be more than 200,000 years old. That places mammoths in North America 100,000 years earlier than previously thought. Researchers say the find could help link North American mammoths with Siberian mammoths that existed more than 1 million years ago. Take a listen.
We think it was in North America because we have seen it in one specimen in Siberia, and this specimen was about 1.3 million years old. It's the oldest genome ever sequenced. And when we look at the Colombian mammoth, we see that about half of the Colombian mammoth genome comes from this mysterious species. So at some point, they must have crossed over to North America so that they could hybridize there with woolly mammoths and create this Colombian mammoth species. But we have never actually confirmed this model. So in order to do that, we would need mammoth remains that are older than 500,000 years.
Delian says researchers are headed back to Old Crow this summer to look for more specimens. A family in Arviat, Nunavut has reclaimed a piece of their past they thought was lost. Kimberly Uluadluak's late grandfather lived in Enadai Lake more than 50 years ago. While living there, he built a traditional kayak using caribou hide. Recently, Uluadluak says the kayak was discovered in an abandoned cabin in the Cree Nation area about 320 kilometers west of Arviat.
Part of the inside has a broken bone and it has dried up because we've found it over 50 years later. And it is dried and it is slightly ripped, but it's still in a good condition.
Uluadluak's husband, Tony, traveled with his son and nephew to retrieve the kayak. She says they were greeted by a group of 15 Cree hunters who welcomed them and returned the family relic. A Yellowknife advocacy group is organizing a documentary screening tonight to raise money for a water well in Gaza. YK Citizens for Ceasefire has been calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. The group says the money from this screening will go towards its Yellowknife Well of Hope project. It aims to build a community water well in Beth Hanun in northern Gaza. The film being screened is called No Other Land. It was made by Palestinian and Israeli filmmakers, and it won the 2025 Oscar for Best Documentary Feature. An organizer says it follows Palestinian resistance in Masafer Yatta, a West Bank community facing destruction by Israeli forces.
So for over half a decade, a local Palestinian called Bezo Adra, he's a Palestinian activist that lives in that community, has been filming the destruction of his community and being destroyed. So this is a firsthand look.
Lamb says she hopes people will attend because screenings like this are rare in Yellowknife. She says films like No Other Land are more commonly shown in independent theaters down south. A welding course in Fort Smith NWT is helping Indigenous women get experience in the trades. Weld Her is a free hands-on welding workshop at the Aurora College. It runs from April 7th to the 17th, and the CBC's Carla Ulrich checked it out.
Would you even say women are better welders?
I would say they are. Guaranteed.
Richard Bird, a Red Seal welder and carpenter, is the shop teacher at PWK High School. But this week, he's giving in-depth training focused on welding and joining to 5 Indigenous female participants. Bird says the Canadian Welding Bureau initiative is aimed at getting more women into welding.
From no welding experience to doing some pretty good welds is, it's amazing to see. And some of them are amazing welders, and they love it.
Bird says even within the first few days, the skills among participants have been remarkable. Dora Hansen says she joined the course because it seemed like a good opportunity, but it turned out to be more than that. It makes her feel empowered.
My favorite part was probably yesterday when I started not only getting the hang of welding, but actually perfecting my lines and being more consistent.
Rain Simba is another participant taking part, and she's already hooked. She says the experience has been incredibly fun. She's encouraging all women thinking about starting a career in welding, and that women should not be defined by gender stereotypes.
Just do it. If you do it, it'll be so worth it. Because women can do anything, and men tell you what you can't and can do. It's so dumb. It's not just based on gender labels.
Both Hansen and Simba say they are planning to turn welding into a career path and will be joining the welding classes once it's reintroduced to Fort Smith in 2026. They hope their journey will inspire other women to pursue the trades. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
We have a correction to make from last week. On Thursday, we reported the opening ceremony of the 60th Tunic Time Festival was being held at the Exarnate Hotel. It was actually at the Cadet Hall. And inside the Cadet Hall that night, the honorary tunic for the festival's 60th anniversary was named. That position is given to somebody who demonstrates community spirit and is an outstanding volunteer. And this year, the honorary tunic is Tommy Inuki. Inuki was just a child when Tunic Time first started.
I am 60 years old. Actually, Tunic Time started when I was 5 years old.
The festival organizers say Inuki is known as a jokester around Iqaluit. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. We leave you tonight with some more moments from Tunic Time in Iqaluit this weekend. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a great night.
By voting NDP, you've helped to build this country. Healthcare for families, pensions for workers. And even when we're not in power, do Democrats get things done for people, like dental care? It's because of you. Because you vote NDP, we can make life better for ordinary people, not the billionaires, and stand up to any government that wants to cut the things that we value. Vote NDP and make sure we're there, fighting for our kind of Canada, fighting for you.